So welcome everybody to the latest Jodel webinar. Today it's my absolute pleasure to be working with Chris Hammer from the States, who has designed a brilliant tool, in my humble opinion, called Charlala, and he's going to tell us all about it in a moment. It's the 15th of September 2021, and it's the first webinar of this type this week, which is fantastic. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Chris. He's going to tell us all about his background, how he decided to, why he decided to create Charlala and what need he felt it had in the classroom, which is the reason why he then created it, and then how it's then evolved from there. And I'm particularly excited about the fact that we're going to be seeing the brand new version of Charlala. So if you're used to using Charlala, we're going to be looking at version 2.0 tonight, possibly for the first time for lots of you. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Chris. It's wonderful. And I'd like to hand over to you to get us started. Over to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate such a warm introduction and really getting to present and connect with some of my colleagues overseas. I will say the US teachers were questioning me why we were doing it at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but I'm happy that we're able to accommodate your schedule, and hopefully you're sitting down tonight after a long day of school, just kind of relaxing and able to enjoy the webinar. So as Joe mentioned, I am a Spanish teacher outside of Chicago. I primarily teach the middle school age, but I've also had experience in the elementary as well as secondary school. So how did Charlala start? Charlala started as kind of a tool that I needed in my classroom. And there was one day my principal called me in and said, Chris, we need you to teach the elementary, the grade school kids. And I laughed because I've never taught elementary kids. But after working with the elementary kids and really getting to the root of pedagogy and educational philosophy with teaching world languages, I realized there was kind of a lack of tooling that really helped me supporting my learners at that age. So I looked into getting Charlala created. I contacted a lot of developers and people with more technical skills than myself. And I realized, oh, that's very expensive. It's very expensive to build a website or to build an application for your students to use. So I learned how to do it myself. And that's the work that we're going to look at today. The entire platform is something that I've created with some help from other individuals, but this is primarily a piece of my work, and we're slowly starting to build our team, bringing more people on board to help us as we grow. If you want a copy of my presentation today, you're welcome to go to bit.ly/drawmfl, or there's a QR code, but you'll also be able to reference it in the webinar that Joe's recording that we'll share afterwards. My goals of today, first, I'm going to introduce Charlala 2.0 and give you a really good feel for the platform, what it's capable of, and how you could use it in your students. I also want you to have some immediate takeaways that you could implement with your students tomorrow, later this week, later this month. The first one of those takeaways is for you to feel confident using student drawings for card talks, weekend chats. Really, you'll see how you can use drawing for any activity to provide rich, comprehensible input for students. Second thing is to leave here with a structure for synchronous and asynchronous storytelling or story asking activities. I know teaching with stories, especially, well, from my experience at least, it's very intimidating to get your feet wet. And that's one of the reasons I built Charlala, is to help with that transition process, getting away from a more traditional approach and starting to introduce stories to our students. The final thing is use drawing and how we can use that as communication for you and your students. The whole theory behind this and why I've built these tools, they aren't just fun and engaging tools for our students, but there is some pedagogy behind it, right? Why we're actually trying to better educate our learners and make them citizens of the world. So as we're aware, right, language acquisition has two systems, and this is really a basic summary of Krashen. But the learn system, right, is conscious formal instruction and emphasis on grammar. I think we're all good at this part in our classrooms. We don't have issues implementing formal instruction or grammar rules or really teaching about the language. However, that other process or that other system in language acquisition is the acquired system. That's subconscious, free communication, natural, authentic interactions, right? That's how we learn our native language, is our parents just engage in enough natural, free communication with us that eventually we pick it up. So why is this hard to introduce in our language classrooms? Particularly, or how I help paint the picture, is in language one, students can talk about anything, right? They can talk about sports, they can talk about the weather, they can talk about the world, politics, YouTube, everything that's going on in the world, they're able to talk about, and that's authentic. The issue is when they start communicating in language two, or a language that they're learning, there's a huge cut down on what they're able to talk about. They may want to talk about sports, but they can only talk about numbers. They may want to talk about the animals or the environment or the weather, but they're only able to talk about numbers and colors and the weather and whatever topic they're learning at that moment in class. Of course, over time, as we continue to educate our learners, these topics from language one start transitioning to language two, right? Eventually, our students will be able to talk about immigration and the weather and politics. The challenge is, or at least as I've witnessed in my class, as these topics from language one start moving over to language two, these topics in language one continue to grow and expand further. Now, kids might be able to talk about sports or basic sports in language two, but they can't talk further about specific athletes or controversy or steroids. Right? These topics all branch out further as our learners grow in language one, which kind of shows there's always going to be a bridge to gap, or there's always going to be a gap between language one and language two. And that's where the challenge comes with implementing authentic conversation or authentic communication. So what do I do in my classroom? Is we draw. Drawing is an awesome form of communicating. It's one of the oldest forms of communication out there. And one of my favorite things about using drawing as communicating is it eliminates the need of language one in the classroom. So if you're a Spanish teacher, right, we want to keep in the target language as much as possible, but sometimes we have to transition back to language one to make an emphasis or make things clear, or for students to be able to communicate clearly. Drawing eliminates the need for English, or eliminates the need for language one. So let's go ahead and, well, before we jump into our first activity, and I'll show you a little bit around the platform Charlala, it's important that before you start a drawing activity, that you really lay down the purpose and expectations with your students. How I emphasize it to them, this is a drawing activity, but it's not a drawing activity. This is not art class. The goal is not to sit here for 20, 25 minutes and just draw. The goal is communication. And you have to be clear with your students about that up front, that we're going to be using drawing, but the end goal is communicating. Second thing is that you need to emphasize with students that regardless of their artistic abilities, they got to put some effort into it. My experience with students, the younger students, second grade, third grade, fifth grade, they're all artists. They all participate. They all love trying. 6, 7, 8, they tend to start, can I draw stick figures? Do I have to color this? And then by the time they get to secondary school, they're either an artist or they aren't. Things don't have to be so black and white. Digital art, and you'll see on the platform, it has a learning curve, but just make sure your students are putting forth their best effort. The second thing, hold yourself accountable. The goal of this is to communicate and use students' drawing to provide some rich, comprehensible input for students. So you need to make sure you're providing that input. Stay in the target language as much as possible. Second thing is try to structure your activity beforehand. Obviously, you see try is italicized. I'll talk about why I mean try. and how you would structure an activity if you were going to go forward with this. Let's go ahead and jump in. I will show you how to use drawing. We'll take a look at Charlala's first tools. So let me transition my screen to charlala.com. And I'll give you first a basic tour, and then we'll start into one of those drawing activities that we were talking about earlier. So as soon as you log in, you can sign up for free at charlala.com. There is a fee to upgrade your account, but we'll talk about that towards the end. You'll notice you'll be able to create assignments. You'll be able to structure things through classes, as well as create your own private library of content. And then the final thing is our DrawRoom. The DrawRoom right now is used for two modes or two different activities, and we're going to go over both of those today. The conversation mode is where we're going to start. What it is it basically takes a small whiteboard and digitizes it for your students. So all of your students now have a digital whiteboard in front of them, and we can use that digital whiteboard to structure some conversations and some speaking activities. When we're setting up a DrawRoom, obviously requiring student login, you know why we need this and why you don't. So you choose to use that as necessary. Obviously, students need to sign up for an account if you're going to require a student login. Allowing stickers, I am going to allow stickers for this activity, and I want you to see what those look like. Music. There is background music as an option during the activity. I am going to disable this as to not interfere with our webinar. And then a draw timer. This is really if you want to hold yourself to steady limits with drawings. I am going to give one today of 90 seconds per drawing. That is a really quick time. But reminder, this isn't a drawing activity. This is a conversational activity that we'll be able to follow up with. Let me go ahead. I'm going to start this DrawRoom, and I'm going to invite you to join from your device at home. It's going to take us to our DrawRoom and pull up a unique code. So right now, if everybody that would like to participate from home, if you could go to charlala.com/draw, and actually I will throw this in the chat. And then if you could enter or join our room code. This is case sensitive. So if you're joining on a mobile device, make sure it doesn't automatically capitalize that first letter. But the code you need to join with is lowercase l 6 s c b k. Awesome. We have our first student in. We got Veronica in. We have Holly in. We'll give it a few minutes for students to join. Ronnie's in. SB is in. Adrian's in. This is great. Joe is in. Nicola, Laura. Awesome. While we're waiting for students to join, I'll go over a couple of the basics of this DrawRoom waiting room. After students join, they are asked, you can kind of just hang out in the DrawRoom and draw on their device until everybody's ready to go. If you have any student join with an inappropriate name, I know it never happens, but if it does, you can go ahead and click on that student and it will automatically kick them out. This is pretty commonplace. We'll have students accidentally, instead of typing their name, we'll type the room code. That's perfectly fine as well. We'll keep you in there. Another nice activity or another nice thing that you can do, I'm not going to do it right now, is you can lock this activity in the top left. You can go ahead. I don't want to do it now, but if you click that lock, that will hide this code from students joining, and it won't allow them access to the activity. So you can do that at any point or after you have all your students logged in. Also, during the activity, if you're in the middle of the activity and you think someone else snuck in, you're welcome to go to your settings in the top right. You can pull down your participants and you can kick people out from here as well as adjust those settings that we first started with. So let me double check in the chat. I see a couple or one person is expressing issues. I am assuming that when you're searching for the code that you are typing a capital L. That first letter is a lowercase l. If you could try that and let us know if that works. And if not, if you're not able to get a code in, that's okay. I'm seeing some messages in the chat. That's perfectly okay. if you just want to follow along with the webinar, and we can kind of troubleshoot what some of those issues were afterwards. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. Reminder, this is where you kind of prep to get remind your students of the goal of this activity. What this is we're going to use this in communication mode. So what we're doing is we're structuring our activity. We're coming up with a few prompts in our heads that we want to be able to talk to students about in the target language. So first thing I usually use the DrawRoom for, and first question I ask my students is, how are you feeling today? How are you doing? I would then instruct my students that when they respond, they are not able, or do not just write out your answer, do not type it out, but I want you to draw your response. Okay. So first question I have for everybody, how are you feeling today? Please go ahead and draw your response on your device. You have 90 seconds. As soon as you're done drawing on your device, please go ahead and click submit up at the top. And then there'll be one more option that says, are you sure you want to submit? Please go ahead and click that submit as soon as you're done with that second, or as soon as you're done with your drawing. Notice I structured, or I set aside 90 seconds for each of these drawings. We already have some coming in. Obviously, this is a pretty quick drawing time, right? Or excuse me, this is a pretty quick question. Students don't need much time to respond to this question. Longer questions will require more time for students to draw. So you'll kind of get a good pace as to how much time do you need to allow for students, depending on what prompts you're giving them. There's also the option, if everybody's done early, you can end drawing early. Or if people need more time and this timer runs out, don't tell anybody. It doesn't actually do anything. It's here for show. So if the timer runs out and you need to give your students a few more seconds to transition, that's okay. I did this by design because I noticed on this part that when students get cut off in the middle of their drawing, it creates a lot of frustration. And as opposed to drawing faster next time and listening to those directions of there's only 10 seconds left, it just created a lot of frustration on students' part. So we can see we have a lot of masterpieces ready to go right here. I'm going to go ahead and end drawing. And then what comes up next is I get to choose up to 5 finalists. This is a little bit of the DrawRoom that has become gamified. But what I like to do when we're working in the DrawRoom is it's a pleasant balance between game, fun, but also we're learning. We're using this as a tool to learn and to communicate. So what I would do is I would find somebody's drawing in class, and we just continue to talk about it. So this one looks great from the get-go. Pamela, I'm going to pull up yours. And this is every drawing that's on here. There's a lot of time we can just take to communicate about the drawing in the target language. So I would follow up. Class, how does Pamela feel today? Oh, she feels tired. Okay, that makes sense. Why? Pamela, why do you feel tired? Oh, you were up late last night. Okay. Students, who else was up late last night? Students, who else is tired? Right? And we can go back and forth, continuing the dialogue. What's nice is it's very quick. We can switch in and out of the drawings. Oh, wow. Look at Ronnie. Sorry, I apologize for the pronunciation. How are they doing today? What's the weather like? What color is this? All right. Really, every drawing that's here is an opportunity to provide rich input for our students. You can go between comparing different drawings. Oh, who feels happy or sad or nervous? And really just building on any conversation you have. Now, what I like to do next is I'm going to choose some finalists. These are drawings that students are going to be able to vote for. Now, you can kind of do this however you want and structure it however you want. One thing that I like to do is I don't like the same set of kids winning the game every single time in my class, regardless of what game we're playing. If we're on Quizlet or GimKit or Charlala, I dislike the same kids winning every time. So I try to spread the love with who I'm choosing as our finalists or our masterpieces. So while I'm going to highlight Pamela's, I'm going to highlight Susan's. Veronica, I'm right there with you. I think I'm feeling a little bit of this today as well. Michelle, we're going to choose yours as a finalist. And then our heart, we need some love from Joe, of course, at the end. Now, what we're going to do is on each of your devices, you're going to be able to vote as to which one you think is the masterpiece. This is a time that you could provide a question for the students. But for this round, I'm not providing a specific question. I'm just going to go, hey, everybody, choose your favorite drawing. Which one really depicts how you're feeling today? I apologize. Let me take that music off. But go ahead on your device and you're voting for which one of those was your favorite drawings. We'll take, I'll say another 10 seconds or so to do that. I do see some questions in the chat. Do the students know who drew what? For right now, yes, the student name is attached to the drawing and is visible, but starting next week, we're pushing out an update this weekend that will allow you to hide that or show that depending on what you want to do, right? Obviously, there's a lot of opportunities that we'll want to highlight students and keep their name attached to it, but there's a lot of opportunities that we want to keep their names anonymous. So let's go ahead. I'm going to end voting and we'll see which one is our masterpiece. Calculating our totals. Nice work. I'm happy our tired face won, but I'm sorry that our tired face won. I agree. I'm right there with everybody. Right. It's been a challenging couple of years, no doubt. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some set of normalcy soon. But nice job, right? We have our first place. At this point, we can continue our conversation about these drawings. Notice people are awarded points. They're awarded points on two things. Their art bonus, first, if they were chosen as a masterpiece and people voted for their drawing. So we can see our 5 masterpieces are up at top. Our winner, Pamela, right? Because she drew the masterpiece. And then the guest bonus. If you're able to successfully guess the masterpiece, you also get a bonus on that. One thing that I like about this, it adds a little bit of competition, a little bit of game, but the points don't really mean anything. It's not too intense of a competition where students get too cutthroat in class. All right. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to do a second prompt. This was pretty basic. I'll ask my students this at the beginning of any DrawRoom, but now I'm going to follow up. We're going to pretend as if it's Monday. We just came back from the weekend. And I love to talk to my students about what they did this past weekend. So let's go ahead and start with that. Our next question, we're pretending it's Monday or, well, it's Wednesday. What did you do last weekend? Where did you go? What did you do last weekend? You have 90 seconds. And please go ahead and answer that question. What did you do last weekend? Where did you go? 90 seconds. Awesome. In the chat, I'm glad you were able to log in. Check in the chat right now to see if we have some other questions.
We had the question, Chris, is there a maximum participant quantity for a session?
Great question. Yes and no. There is no maximum number of participants. Everybody will be able to sign up and join the DrawRoom. However, when you start getting into 40 and 50 and 100 students signing in, it's a lot. It's a lot of bandwidth that's necessary for those activities. And you might start to experience some latency or some delay or some buffering when you have that number of students participating. Great question.
Cool. And on a similar point, Kim is saying, I had to join late. Is there a way to add students to a drawing room? Which I suppose, presumably, if you started the drawing room, can students still join the drawing room once it's been started?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, you can still join. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the chat. That's our code that you can use to join, and you join late by going to charlala.com/draw. Right, because we always have late students that are coming in or we're unable to get in beforehand. Something, if you want to prevent students like this from joining late, you can lock the class in the top left. Oh, wow. So that was a little bit over 90 seconds, but we still have some masterpieces or potential masterpieces coming in. This is great. The first one I'm going to highlight is Pamela, because Pamela went a little bit different with this. Some of you are looking at that like, how did she do that? I've built something in a Charlala called stickers. If you try it out for our next round, on the left-hand side, there's a little face that you click, and then there's an option to put stickers on your canvas. This is a great tool for those students that say, oh, I can't draw. I don't know how to do it. I don't want it. Okay, it's not that hard. Same thing with Holly. Holly kind of did a hybrid. She drew her own and she drew herself sleeping and added one of those emojis in there. Awesome. These all look great. Isabel went horseback riding. Or wait, let me explain here. I'm just having too much fun with the conversations. I'm going to go ahead and end this round of drawing. If you do end a round early and students are in the process of drawing, don't worry, it will submit whatever they have. And if they have a blank screen, it will submit that too. So let's take a look. This is a great opportunity now, whatever your question is, to follow up with a conversation. Oh, Adrian, you watched Netflix. Class, who else watched Netflix? Do you prefer Netflix or YouTube or Amazon Prime or Hulu? Why? Which do you like more? What did you watch? Really, with any one drawing, we can build on the conversation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, really depending on how long or how well this aligns with what you're trying to teach or what unit you're in. Adrian, we're going to mark that as a finalist. That's wonderful. I'm happy you were able to watch some Netflix. Isabel, I know I already started talking about the horseback riding, but this looks great. We now continue. You can really structure this now, right? Have whatever conversation you want to have. If you're teaching young novice students, oh, what animal is this? What color is this? Right? What is the weather like? We can have some basic questions. If you want to have more advanced questions, right? If you're intermediate levels, oh, what activity is she doing? Where did she go? Right? And if we're wanting to have some advanced conversations, we can talk about the environment, upper level animal conversations I'm not too familiar with, but we can kind of structure that conversation however you'd like. Susan, this looks great. I hopefully was able to enjoy some food as well. I hope everybody was. And then Veronica, of course, with sleeping. I love it. And now there's always opportunities to have some fun too. One thing I can promise is you're going to get some pretty bad drawings. That's okay. That's part of it. Laura, I'm not calling your drawing bad by any means. It's just this coincidental that I'm on over yours right now. But there's going to be some drawings too that we aren't quite sure what's going on. If I were to give a literal interpretation of this, it looks like she took her dog walking on a mountain path where there was also a river and the dog threw up. I don't know. But obviously, this is where we find that conversation between us and the students and really able to provide rich follow-up questions and rich input as to what's happening in these drawings, right? Each drawing is worth 1,000 words. So we have plenty to talk about given our students' artwork up as so far. We're going to go ahead and start. I apologize about that again. We're going to go ahead and start our voting. Please go ahead. Instead of choosing your favorite one, what I'm going to ask the class is choose which activity you wish that you were doing. Which activity do you wish that you did last weekend? I also see some questions. All right, great. How do you highlight these or the question in the chat says, how do you highlight the student's pick since it isn't showing up on the student screen? So right now you do have to project on a separate screen. So if you're still teaching remote, this might be challenging. However, I recognize the need of everything to both be on the teacher screen and student screen. And that's something we're building out. We're in the process of building out. So it will be everything that students need to see will be on their screen. So they won't have to go back and forth between two tabs. Great question as well. When you ask students questions, do they respond orally or digitally? So right now they respond orally when we're in class. Digitally, if we're having a remote session where they'd prefer to type in the chat, or they can speak out loud as well. One of the things that's nice is regardless of students participating back or speaking back to us with some of these questions, we're still providing that rich input while we're going over the images, right? Let's go ahead and move to the next step. We'll see which one of our masterpieces is. Calculating. And in third place, we have eating a nice dinner. In second place, we have our taking a nap last weekend or resting up. And then in first place, we have horseback riding. I think I'm right there with everybody. Horseback riding would have been my vote. I would love to go last weekend. So this is what I was talking about earlier when I talked about you might want to structure your activities a little bit. You could come in here with a list of 5 questions ready to go to ask students. How are you feeling today? Where did you go this weekend? What did you do there? What are you doing next weekend? What clothes are you wearing? What do you prefer to go shopping for? What's your favorite store? Or you can come in with a little less structure and kind of go based off of the authentic conversations that we're already bringing up. So for this one, somebody brought up horseback riding. So maybe let's continue and follow up about sports. Hey, horseback riding is a sport. What sports do you guys participate in? This way, we're keeping the conversation authentic, right? And we got there naturally. What I'm going to do right now is I want to show you how we will adapt this tool or adapt this back and forth process of prompt, drawing, select a masterpiece, and how we do that for storytelling or story asking. So let me go ahead. What I'm going to do is end this drawing room. It will pull up who our winners are. It gives out 3 different awards. Our Digital Artist Award. These were the people that were selected our most as our masterpieces. Congratulations, Veronica, Susan, and Pamela. Our art curators, these are people that were able to successfully choose the masterpieces, Adrian, Nicola, and Riss. And then finally, our overall results is a combination of these 2 scores. So what I like about this, a little bit of competition, a little bit of gamify, but it's not too competitive. It's not too much where students can kind of get out of hand with it. So on everybody's account right now, I know yours looks a little bit different, but you also have the opportunity to download these drawings and save them locally. So on mine, I can download just our masterpieces, or I can go back and download all of the drawings. We can do this for a multitude of reasons. If we want to have a follow-up activity the next day, sometimes some classes have used these for like 1-word images, and they want to save that as their character that they just created. For whatever reason, you want to download it, save it, use it in a future activity, and then let me know how you're using it. Because we're building some of those future activities into Charlala, so you don't have to switch to another tool in your classroom. You can just kind of go ahead on the platform. Our next steps is in your top right. It should say something like join new DrawRoom or start a new DrawRoom. If you could do that, please go ahead and do that now. Join a new DrawRoom, and I'm going to get things set up on my device. We're going to use the same DrawRoom tool that we just did, but we're going to use it for a story instead. So part of Charlala and our newest version allows people to create short stories. And what a short story looks like, I'll pull up one that I've already created in English so we can all follow along. The Smart and Lazy Boy, it allows you to write a story up to 15 parts. If you're writing more than 15 parts for the story, I recommend breaking it into multiple stories. That's also kind of too long of an assignment for students to complete in one sitting or one day. So we structured it that way. You can also record audio along with the story and hide the text. So if you want to make this a complete interpretive activity, forcing students to listen to the entire story, you can do that as well. And this also cuts down on that translation problem. But let's go ahead and take this story and we're going to use it now in a live DrawRoom activity. So we're going to go to our DrawRoom. We're going to start with our story mode. I do not require student login for this. Well, you guys aren't my students, so that would kind of throw things off. The Smart and Lazy Boy is the story we will use today. I will allow stickers, no music, and then let's go ahead and add our draw timer again. I know it doesn't stop us from going too long, but at least it provides us an outline. I'm going to go ahead and throw in the chat. If you would be great enough to join us for this round, please go to charlala.com/draw, and then I will type our code in here as well. It is XCMF8W. Also, while we're waiting, I know we're waiting for a few more people to join us, hopefully, with the drawings. I will show you at our homepage. This is probably the most common issue that students or have when they're trying to go to the DrawRoom, is they're actually logging in. Oh, it won't be able to show me right now because I'm logged in. But if students go to charlala.com/sign up, it will also ask them for a code. If you enter the draw code there, it won't work because this isn't associated with a class. So just make sure students are logging into charlala.com/draw. That seems to be the biggest issue students have getting logged in. I will tell you one of my biggest challenges as I'm continuing to develop Charlala is making it child-proof. One of the things I recognize, at least when I'm in the classroom, right, is we give students directions and we know they aren't going to follow them, right? We know where students most commonly fall when receiving directions or where they kind of deviate from the correct path. And in Charlala, right now, that can cause some issues if students don't follow the prescribed path. So I'm doing everything I can to make everything child-proof and making sure you and your students have a positive experience. So let's go ahead and get started. We have our 20 students in. If this were your class activity and you knew everybody was in the room, you would go ahead and lock this activity in the top left, and now nobody can join. I will unlock it just in case we have some late joiners. And let's go ahead and start this activity. Part 1. There is a boy, Marcos, that is very lazy, but also very smart. He does not like doing his chores, especially making his bed. Now, we notice this is different than the format we had before. The prompt is provided for students ahead of time, and it's on the student's device. Okay, so let's go ahead and I would ask you to draw your best summary of part 1. There is a boy, Marcos, that is very lazy, but also very smart. He does not like doing his chores, especially making his bed. We're going to go ahead and start this round. You have 90 seconds to try your best. A reminder, as I would tell my students, I'm not looking for the most artistic. I'm not looking for the best. I'm looking for somebody that best summarizes what they interpreted from the scene. So there is a boy, Marcos. He's very lazy and smart. He does not like doing his chores, especially making his bed. All right, we have about 60 seconds left. We'll give you a little more if you need it. Go ahead and get started. Great. There's a great question in the chat from Veronica. What sets Charlala apart from other platforms? I don't want to say their names. You provide a couple example of other tools that allow drawing and kind of drawing in a little bit different fashion. That's great. And I will be honest, there's a lot of other platforms that you can draw on, or there are similar tools. I would say the biggest thing that differentiates us or Charlala is that we're world language focused and we're world language specific. So when other teachers are trying to, or when other teachers are using Charlala that don't necessarily teach a language, they don't understand, well, why would you use this that way? Our tools, however, are structured specifically for what would be most beneficial for language acquisition and most beneficial for world language teachers and students. Other platforms, nothing against them, but they try to make a tool that fits the entire market, the math market, social studies, language learning, sciences, history, and really they stretch their products too thin when they do that, because they have to provide or adapt the tool for everybody. And a little later on at the end, I'll show you our interpersonal speaking tool, which really kind of hits home why this is such a language specific platform. Great question. And if you want to talk more, I'm happy to follow up with you additionally, Veronica. Thank you. All right. So we can see I only have 13 drawings in. This was a longer prompt. I'm not going to end the drawing on this room. I'll let those of you that are still finishing finish. But this is the point that I'd really hammer home with students and their drawing is we want to have a drawing that best shows what they just read. We want to cover every aspect of it. And how I explain it to my students is I say, if I took your picture and I gave it to somebody that never read the story before, would they be able to take the details from it that we need them to? So what are those details? I would say detail one is that there's a boy, our main character, Marcos. Second thing, he has a personality. He's lazy, but also very smart. He does not like doing his chores, especially making his bed. Okay, so which one of these encapsulates all of those things? We can take a look at this drawing. We got Marcos, kind of a dirty bed, maybe, I think. He's lazy, sleeping in it. This has some of the details, but doesn't cover all of those parts that we wanted to. Oh, Joe's drawing, we got Marcos. He's lazy, but also smart. He got a 10 out of 10, and he has a messy bed. Right, this one's pretty good. That has most of those key parts to the story. I can't select it as a finalist until we're done. So let me select Joe's now. Oh, wow. Look at some of these other ones. So now this is a great time to follow up with input, just like we did during those first conversations, right? Oh, let's talk about Pamela's. Oh, what color is this? What are these? What are the sandals? What's going on here? We can provide the input, but also bring it back to the story. I'm seeing in the chat, Karen's is great. Where is Karen's? Oh, I agree with you. If we take a look, we got an A+ student, super smart, but look, he's a little disorganized, little lazy with the chores. Look at the bed. Awesome. I'll go ahead. I want to make sure we can move along quickly. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I'll choose some quickly, and then let's go ahead and vote. On this vote, we aren't choosing our favorite. We're choosing which one best summarizes the scene. So you can go ahead and start that now. Please take a vote. Which one do you think best summarizes the scene? Marcos is that smart and lazy boy. He does not like doing his chores, especially making his bed. I'll give us another 5 seconds or so to move forward, or to vote, I guess, per se. And voting is ended. In third place, second place, and first place. First place, Karen, nice job. And shout out, I think it was Veronica that pointed yours out. Thank you for pointing that out, Veronica. It really is a great summary. At this point, we can go back to the drawing, provide some more input about how this drawing summarizes the scene, and then we'll move forward to part 2. We're only going to do 2 parts of the story today, just because I want to leave time for everything. But let's take a look at part 2. Every morning, Marcos does not want to make his bed, but his mother yells, "Make your bed." All right, so that's our part 2. We would be able to go through with students, digest that story a little bit, and now we'll give you 90 seconds to draw. This is our last drawing. Put in our best effort here. I appreciate everybody's effort today. I know at the end of your teaching day, sitting down for a webinar and participating in it, showing off your digital art, which you might be a little self-conscious of, is a lot. And I really appreciate you coming along and participating with us today. So let's see. I thought I saw a question as we're waiting for some drawings. Oh, nice. I got a recommendation. Somebody, I'm glad you do Dibuja Jueves, our drawing on Thursdays. I used to do that with my students as well. We had kind of a daily agenda, our video viernes, our Friday video, música miércoles, our Monday or our Wednesdays for music, but Thursdays for drawing. That's nice. I like it. We will try it out and see how it works. One thing I notice on my end, and I can recommend to everybody, or at least throw it out there, is I currently have 0 of 23 drawings coming in. So I know sometimes you're sitting there like, is really nobody? Oh, as 2 drawings get submitted right then. But sometimes I know you're sitting there scratching and you're like, has nobody submitted, or is something not working? So something that I wanted to make sure that as I'm building the new version of Charlala is you can refresh whenever you want. So if I refresh the page now, or if you refresh at home, it's not going to ruin your activity. It's not going to throw you off and lose your space. The only issue that you will experience is if you refresh in the middle of drawing, it's going to erase your drawing. But otherwise, use the refresh. That's something I wanted to build in because I've had frustrations with other tools when we freeze and we can't refresh the page. All right, we have a lot of great drawings of mom yelling at Marcos to make his bed. We only have 9 drawings in. Please try to submit yours within the next 5 seconds or so. I'm going to end it early, and whatever you have will be submitted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. Now we can go through, provide that rich input again, and we would choose our masterpieces or our finalists, which best align with that story. I really like this one, Faust. Mom yelling at him, make your bed, and he's making that funny face back at her. Right? I think that's what's happening, especially with a lot of our adolescent students. Michelle, this is beautiful. Look, we got a messy bed going on right here. Marcos is like, what did I do? Me? I didn't do anything wrong. And then we have mom yelling at him. That's great. We're going to go ahead and add that to the story. All of these are really fantastic. I would nominate all of them. We got somebody in the chat asking, how do we do those emojis? On the left hand of the canvas, there is a smiley face. It's for stickers. And once you click that, some options will pop up for clothes, different faces that you'll be able to add to the canvas. You can also disable that if you don't want your students to have access to it while they're drawing. All right, so I've chosen my finalists. One of the things I really like about this new version is you get to choose the finalists. I know in class, when we ask students to vote, sometimes they're voting for the most popular kid in class or the student that they like, or sometimes they vote for the really bad ones on purpose, right? Because students can be malicious and they think those things are funny. So at least with this, students still get a vote, but you get to choose what they're voting from. So it allows you to kind of structure the activity and tailor it how you think would best flow. So let's go ahead and take, I'm going to forget to do that every time. I apologize. Please go ahead and vote for our masterpiece. Which one is the best part, or which one best summarizes this scene? I know also I've already received some feedback that people don't want to vote. They just want to choose this as a teacher, or they don't want to have any of that voting aspect of it. We are building in an option to skip voting, and you'll just go to the next part. Or in the meantime, if you want to do that, it's okay. Choose one drawing that drawing will be the winner, and then just move forward. It's okay to only have one nominee. When will that option be released to skip voting? Great question. I'm hoping next week. I'm hopeful. Please don't quote me. It's challenging. We can only really push out big updates over the weekends since we don't want to disrupt users in the US or UK or Europe or Asia. There's no good time during the day. So hopefully next week we'll be pushing out that update. Let's go ahead and end our voting on this round. Let's see who was our masterpiece. Nice work. Again, we're awarded points. Now, this is a 6-part story that I created. I can go ahead and if we want to, we can continue with the story. But just for right now, I want to make sure you have enough time and be respectful of everybody's time. I'm going to go ahead and end this activity early and show you kind of what that looks like at the end of the draw room. Our students are awarded just as they were before. And then something I like to do, you can't do this on Charlala right now. You have to do a little bit of app smashing or using another app or just doing it by hand or paper, is I then go to the storyboard. If you're doing this in story mode, you will eventually have a masterpiece for each part of the story. You'll have all 6 parts of the story, and I download the whole storyboard. What that does is it downloads every single drawing that was selected as a masterpiece. So we have one drawing for each part of the story. The next day in class, I come to students with just the 6 pictures. And I say, okay, can you write the story now? We just went over the story. We did it for the last day or 2 in class. We had a lot of input on the story. Let's see what you took from the story. Can they retell it perfectly? No. But they definitely should be able to pick up on some of those key terms and phrases that you kind of reiterated throughout the storytelling process. There's a great question. Can you continue the story another time or lesson? Yes, you can right now. There's a couple steps you have to do if you want to do that, though. So let's say we were in the middle of our activity and the bell rings and we're only 3 parts of the way through the story. If you want to pick up on that story tomorrow, 2 things have to happen. First thing, you have to bookmark it. So you and students have to bookmark the story. So they should bookmark that website. 2, they have to be on the same device that they were using the day before. Okay, so those are the two guidelines, and then you can pick back up on the story and continue. We are building in the ability to kind of pause a draw story and then resume it from your own teacher dashboard. Right now, we just don't have that ability, but that's kind of a workaround for the time being, at least. All right, that was a great question. I'm going to go ahead and return to my account. We went over 2 of the major uses of that draw room and how we use drawing for both those weekend chats, conversation starters, stories, really however you want to use it. I get teachers a lot of times saying, hey, I don't do the whole storytelling thing, but what I do is instead of creating a story, I just write the questions out ahead of time. That way students can see the questions on their device. Okay, you're welcome to it. Use it how Charlala fits in your classrooms. You're welcome to modify, and then let me know, because if enough people are modifying the tool in the same way, we want to build that into the tool. All right. A couple other questions. Do you have to make a story for each class, or can you reuse the same story in a different class? That's a great question. One story, and you can reuse it multiple times. So let me show you in my library. I have some stories worked out. Here's this story that we just went through. We can do that in the draw room. That's a live, right, synchronous activity. But let's say you wake up one day and you're feeling sick, right? Subplans are the worst. So what I do is I come in Charlala and I find the story that I want and I create an assignment. Let's go with September 15th, sick day. Or let's say Mr. Hammer is absent, right? We can give some directions, draw your best interpretation of each scene. No due date. You can assign it to a class. You can make it private if you want. Public, we'll just create a link. Here's the story it's going to assign them. And then we can provide what type of feedback. Do we want to provide text feedback and just give them a comment, or do we want to provide rubric feedback? Right now, we'll leave this blank. And then finally, our drawing settings, show them the text, show them the audio, or allow stickers. Showing the text, if you want to disable this, it forces students just to listen to the story audio, which can be very challenging. I'm going to leave that on and leave on the audio and stickers as well. You'll now see it creates a unique assignment link. Now, what this does is that that synchronous story that we just went through can only happen when you're in class leading it. But if you're absent, or you want to provide students with an assignment to complete in class, but individually, that's why you would make this an assignment. We can go ahead and start the assignment. I'll show you what it quickly looks like from the student perspective. They can see the whole story. They can listen to all of the audio. You can hide either one of these if you prefer, and then they just go ahead and create their drawing for each part, just as they would before. It gets submitted to your story library, and then you can take a look at it and provide them feedback. Okay, a great activity if you wake up and you need just a quick lesson plan ready to go, or if you just kind of need that last minute help with a story. All right, the one activity that we won't go very far in depth with today, but the other tool that Charlala does offer is a simulated conversation tool. So what that allows you to do, and we can go ahead and create a fake one right now, a very short question, but it's very hard to have one-on-one conversations with each of our students in the classroom, right? That one-on-one dialogue or pulling them out into the hallway is very challenging. So I created this simulated conversation tool. You can pre-record some questions, and then students are recorded spontaneously as they respond to the question. So they don't get time to prepare. They don't get a prompt. They aren't just writing out a script and recording what they wrote. They're actually engaging in that dialogue. Is it an authentic conversation? No. Is it a time-saving tool that simulates a conversation as best as we can in the current digital age? Yes. So I will show you an example conversation right now, actually. Let's go ahead and we have greetings and introduction. Or let me go to a different assignment. I apologize. Or actually, let's make a new conversation today just to show you that process of what it looks like. Creating a conversation. We'll call this the Joe Dale conversation. We'll put it in English. We'll make sure it's novice. Do you want to limit how long students can respond for each question? I give them enough time, unlimited time. And then if you want to include it in the library, I did see that there was a question, is there a library? There is a shared library of Charlala content. We don't have a lot of resources in it yet, but in the next month or so, we've established some partnerships that we'll be able to get some content in there ready for you to use. And let's go ahead. We want to record one question for our students. We'll do this in English, and we'll record how, oh, I apologize, y'all. It is not going to let me record because my camera is being used by the webinar. So that's okay. Let me go back and I will show you then one of my. I think
what you could do, Chris, if you wanted to, is you could turn off your camera in Zoom and then you'd be able to do the activity if you wanted to.
That's a great idea.
Try again.
Let me see if that will work. So we have an activity that or the conversation I just created. Let's go ahead and try to add our question. There we go. Hello, student. How are you doing today? You can approve or redo that video if you need to. What I like to do is add a transcript as well. What the transcript allows for, first, if you want to show it to students, you can. You do not have to show it to students, but it is helpful to show it to students if they're at a novice level or it's also helpful for grading if you choose not to show it to students. Let me go ahead and add one more question just so you can get the entire feel. What class did you go to before this? What class did you go to? Really provide any conversational questions that you would. Obviously, this is way different than our drawing tool, but this is what I'm talking about being very language focused. All of our tools focus around language acquisition. What class did you come from? Okay, what we would now do, let's save this activity. We have a conversation, and now we can turn this conversation into an assignment. Let's go ahead and call this our Joe Dale assignment. We would ask everybody to try your best to respond appropriately in the target language. Due date, we'll make it public. We can preview the conversation, make sure that's the one we want. It is. We want to provide text feedback for students for the entire assignment. And then this is what I was talking about earlier. Right now, you can't record student video that will be coming in the near future. You can just record student audio, but you can show the transcript. I'm going to leave this off so students can't see it, but I'll show you how it's still visible for teachers when you want to grade or provide feedback. You can also allow students to preview their recording and resubmit if you want to allow them multiple attempts. If this is a practice activity, of course, allow them to review it, allow them to try it again. If this is an assessment and this is your interpersonal speaking assessment, don't allow a preview. Don't allow multiple attempts. They get one shot and we'll see how they respond. And let's create that assignment. We did make it a public assignment, so we will create a public link. And let me go ahead and open up that story, or excuse me, open up that conversation and assignment. I'm going to turn off my camera on your end, and we can see what this experience looks like. Students start by entering their name and their email address. They have some options to go through to make sure that this will work on their device. It works better on non-mobile devices, so don't use a phone or an iPad or a tablet. Try to use a Chromebook or a computer. I know mine works. And right here, we have our 2 questions. Students push start on question 1. It asks them the question, and then you have to respond. How am I doing today? I'm doing okay, Mr. Hammer. How are you doing today?
Just to let you know, Chris, we can't hear the sound. I think you need to go up to more options at the top and click share computer sound for us to hear the sound, if that's okay.
I just did that after the first question went through.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Okay, so let's try the second question. What class did you go to before this? What class did you go to? 3, 2, 1. I went to math class before this. I went to math class. Now notice students cannot review this assignment. This has already submitted their recording. So it's really a great way to get their spontaneous responses to questions. Whether they know it or they don't know it, you're going to know from this type of assignment. Now from the teacher's perspective, let me go back to my teacher dashboard. We'll see this new assignment has 1 response. Let's take a look at that 1 student response. And we can see, this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's very helpful to add the transcript. Even though it wasn't visible to students, it's visible to the teacher. It's visible to us. So we can see, how did they respond to question number 1? The question was, hello, student, how are you doing today? And then you have to respond. How am I doing today? And then we go to question 2. I went to, and then question 3 and question 4. This helps also cut down with the total time to listen to each assignment, because you can kind of click through very quickly. I have a question, so I shouldn't use a cell phone for this. I don't recommend it. No, it will not work as well as using a computer or a laptop. Okay. So that kind of provides a basic outline of the tools that we provide on Charlala. The main two tools would be the simulated conversation tool and then this DrawRoom tool, which allows for a variety of activities, conversations, story mode that we saw. You can also turn those stories into assignments. And then in our next update, we're also pushing out a game mode that was in the old version and that is coming back in the new version. That's really used if you're targeting specific vocabulary terms or key input phrases. So that I know there are a handful of questions, and I will definitely get to those in the chat. But I know we're running short on our time. And
it's fine, Chris. We've still got we've still got plenty of time. This is amazing, and I think that everyone would love to see more features, etc., or anything else you want to share. It's wonderful. I mean, one question that's come up is you showed us about the audio, but could you explain how do you create the audio? Is that an inbuilt recording tool within Charlala, for example?
Yes, that's a great question. Let me go back to the tool and I will show it to us. So let's say we wanted to create a story for our students to use. Let's go to my library stories, and then we'll create a new story. We'll call this the Joe Dale story. Sorry, Joe, you're
no, it's fine. It's lovely. Thank you.
You're getting many activities named after you today. We'll make it a novice story.
We had another question about Google Classroom integration. Is that something, let's say you wanted to create an assignment in Google Classroom, would it just be a question of copying the link, or are you considering down the line of building in integration with Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, for example?
Great question. Yes. Right now, the workaround is to copy that assignment link and then post it into Google Classroom, Schoology, Canvas, whatever LMS that your school is using. Down the line, that is in our pipeline for future developments, is being able to integrate directly with those tools. But at least right now, you can copy and paste the link, and that should work for you fine. Okay, a cover image. Let's go to our image gallery. I don't think I'll find a picture of Joe. So I don't think it's worth the risk either, Joe. We don't know.
It's all good. It's all good. I love the way that you've got the PEC cells, the copyright-free directory inbuilt. That's wonderful.
Yes, it takes a little minute to load some of the pictures, but it's great to have such a great free resource of images to use. So you can choose the cover image. Next thing is include audio recording. Do you want to include audio for your students? Yes, we do for this one. And then do we want to submit to the library? No, not this one. Maybe our next story. Now we go ahead and write this story with our students. Okay. You can write it beforehand if you want. If you are looking for stories that you want to use, I do have some recommendations I'll make at the end of the presentation of where you can get some stories to get started with. We'll be coming into our library as well. But you can also write these student stories with your students, right? Using different story asking techniques. So let's start with, there was a man that was very hungry. He went to a restaurant. We can go ahead now and record the audio for this story. So let me go ahead. You click audio right here. And then you can record. There was a man that was very hungry. He went to a restaurant. Same thing, you can play back that audio and then you can record. There was a man. Obviously, I wouldn't accept that audio in a normal circumstance, but now we have that audio attached to this part. We can continue on the second part. He ordered the special of the day. And just go ahead and record that audio. He ordered the special of the day. And approve. And you go ahead and following that formula, and then you will be able to record audio for your stories. Otherwise, I think that provides a pretty great summary of where we're at with Charlala 2.0 right now. I do see some other questions in the chat. Let me
We've had the question about pricing, which always comes up. I don't know, Chris, if that's something you want to share today, or you want to ask people to get in contact, or as you will.
Yes. Well, one thing before that, I will show you, if you're interested in stories or scripts, these, and I have it right here with me. These are the story scripts that at least got me started before I started creating my own stories. So these are great story scripts that you can get started with. I know Trip Scripts is available for online purchase or online download. And I'm hoping you would be able to get Ann Mateva's story scripts shipped to you wherever you're at in the world. And the final thing, as we're going over the questions, I know pricing is one of those. Charlala, I've always wanted it to be a free endeavor, but unfortunately, as I continue to grow the platform, it has become a large expense on my end to maintain, and I want to make sure that the platform and the tool are sustainable for teachers, and we're able to continue using it in the future. So there is a free version that you can sign up for that has some limits. It limits the number of, first, you can create all that you want on the platform for free. You can create conversations, you can create rubrics, you can create your stories, and there's no limit to how many you can create. When you have a free account, though, there's a limit on the number of assignments that you can create and the number of DrawRoom activities that you can use. Assignments are anything that you would do asynchronously. A speaking activity, one of those story activities that you send your students the link and they do on their own. Those are considered assignments, and every free account comes with 10 assignments per year. The DrawRoom activity, also, those are what we did at the beginning of the webinar, our daily conversations. If we want to take a story and do it live, like we did as well, and you would be able to do 5 of those on a free account per year. Pricing, if you're interested in upgrading, is $120 a year. But I'm also working with individuals and school districts. I want to make sure that this is equitable across the board, and that if you want access, that you can get access. So if you're having some funding issues, either personally or funding issues with school, I get that. I understand that. So reach out to me personally, and we can see what we can make happen for you and your district and your students. Okay. I see another question.
We've got a few questions. So, well, if you want to answer the latest one, and then I can pull out a couple of other questions that we've got as well.
Yes, of course. The latest one, can you delete assignments to allow you to create more? I'm sorry, no, you can't. As soon as you click the create button, it takes past that limit. So no, you wouldn't. I understand what you're asking, is if you can kind of recycle those 5 throughout. No, you can't. There's also, how do you separate the same story for different classes? That's a great question. So that's something that, everything from my teacher head and everything that I experience in the classroom, I understand where you want to go with things. So let's say I created, so we have this Joe Dale assignment, right? We just created this. We could do the same thing with our story assignment we just created. I have it right here. The only way that you can assign an assignment to classes is if you make the assignment private. Right now, the assignment's public. So you need to edit the assignment. We'll make it private. That way, only your students can access it. After you make it a private assignment, you click Assign and choose which classes you want. Now all 4 classes have that assignment. So it really is, as long as you make sure your assignments are private, which is better for your classroom security anyways, right? It really is 4 clicks and you can get it quickly assigned to whoever you'd like. Great question.
So if an assignment is public, does that mean it automatically appears in the library? Is that what you mean? Can you clarify the difference between the public and the private assignment?
Yes, absolutely. So what a private assignment does is the only way that a student can access a private assignment is if they are logged in to Charlala and they have an account that's linked to your teacher account. This way, you're not going to get any inappropriate responses. And if you do get inappropriate responses, they will be directly linked to that student. Some of us, though, and I know, right, with GDPR and different compliance laws, Some people can't have their students create accounts, or their district prefers them not to. So what you can do is create a public assignment. Now, public sounds very scary. It makes it seem like everybody out there in the world can find your assignment. They can't. The only way that somebody will find this assignment, now that it's public, is if they know this unique assignment link. So you click copy and it shows, it copies your assignment link. So if you took this link and you gave it to students and they shared it with somebody else, this is one of those instances where you might run into an issue, because even though nobody should know the link, students do sometimes share these things. Another aspect, so making your assignment public does not put it in the Charlala library. Okay. So that I know that is a fear, like, oh no, all my stuff might be sitting there for everybody else to look at or take. No, the only way that something will get submitted to the Charlala library is when you create a story or you create a conversation. So let's create a new story. There's a specific button down here that says submit to Charlala library. You have to click that button. You then have to agree twice that you are the correct author of this. Sorry, you can't submit Harry Potter to our library and get credit for it. So you won't accidentally make something public in our library. Even after this, I look at all the submissions and we choose which ones are accepted and which ones aren't. So I'll be able to kind of field some things in there. Also, I know I brought it up, GDPR compliance, any data compliance there is, we're good. We are compliant with those laws and regulations. So don't let that stop you. Reach out to me personally if you need something for your school or district. There's also, yes, we accept purchase orders. I see Iris talking about that. Thank you.
We had another question about, you were talking about bookmarking the link if you had to finish halfway through the lesson. Oh, sorry, at the end of the lesson, if you were still halfway through the story. So the question was, I would assume that you'd have to bookmark each class if you don't finish the story. Is that what you mean? So can you just clarify that? Presumably, if you wanted to use the same story with multiple classes, each individual class would have to bookmark it on their own device, and then you as the teacher would have to bookmark each link in each separate class's lesson, as it were. Is that right?
Yes. And I recognize, right, that's not the ideal outcome. So we're working into our system so you can add a pause and then resume and not have to save anything. But that is correct. In my classes, because we're doing Charlala on the same days. So let's say on Tuesday, we all didn't get through the story. My bookmark now has period 1 story, period 2 story, period 3. You do have to bookmark all of those.
And then Susan's asked the question, would bookmarking 3 count as 3 DrawRooms used?
Yes. So at any time that you started a new DrawRoom activity, that would count against that limit. But if you're testing things out, and I mean, I don't want to be the gatekeeper. So if you're testing things out and you're like, oh no, I don't want to do this because I'm reaching my limit, shoot me an email. I can raise your limit. I can help you out. So let me know if that becomes an issue, and I'm happy to help you out as you're kind of playing and getting your feet wet. I would hate for you to use your limit just playing around, not for your students. So
fantastic. Just one sort of thought when you were talking about the charlala.com/draw and then the code, would it be an idea to make it possible to click on a QR code option? So if a student had a mobile device, they'd be able to scan the QR code there and then and just go straight to the room, rather than asking the students always, even if they're on a mobile device, to write in the link in. Just a thought.
So instead of, just to clarify, Joe, you're saying instead of getting go to charlala.com/draw,
you could have both, couldn't you? You could have the link, but you've also got the QR code option. So you could then, the teacher could click on the QR code option, and then the students that have a mobile device, let's say if you're teaching remotely or you're in a one-to-one situation whereby everyone has their own device, they could then scan the QR code rather than getting them to write it in. I just thought if you had both, then it might be, as you were saying, you want to make it as easy as possible for the students to join the session, as it were. That might be, particularly when you've got things like, is it a capital L? Sorry, is it a small L or a capital I, and all those sorts of issues that come up sometimes. That might be another way of doing that. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just wrote that down. You will all see it in a future Charlala update, and we can all think of Joe when we see that.
And just another thought as well. When the students are drawing in, say, the DrawRoom activity, one thing that I've done when I've demonstrated Charlala in different webinars is I've used a third-party tool to allow me to record the screen and to annotate on the top of an individual student's whiteboard to then give feedback to that student and then ask that student to carry on drawing while I'm giving feedback, if that makes sense. It might be a use case which you don't think is a good idea, but just a suggestion, might be an idea to think about how the teacher could give feedback live with their own drawing pen while a student is drawing, or afterwards in real time. That's all. Just another thought.
Yeah, no, I love that. You will see these things in maybe Charlala 3.0.
Okay.
But we're definitely playing with the idea of right now everything students and teachers are interacting with their whiteboards, but we also want to see students and teachers interacting on the same whiteboard. So we're kind of playing with a couple of those ways that we can do that to make it a little bit more engaging and beneficial. So yeah, we're getting there. Just need some more time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Chris, for sharing with us all the different ways in which you can use Charlala. I mean, as I've said at the beginning of the webinar, I've been a big fan for a couple of years now. I think it's fantastic, and just demonstrating it live and getting everybody to interact and to draw the pictures based on your prompts. It just brings it home on how powerful it is and how it's aimed at language teachers and language classes, and the way in which you're a language teacher and you just get it, and it's just lovely to see. And I love the way that you said, that the pictures don't have to be works of art; they just need to convey meaning. And I think that's exactly right. And so, it's just been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's just been really, really interesting to see how you've gone from version 1 to version 2. I'm a big fan of the game mode option, which I'm delighted to hear is going to be coming to version 2.0, because I think that's also a really nice activity to do. But the story activity is just brilliant. I can see that really, really being valuable for learners with more language. I think that you could use the basic game mode at any level, but I think the story mode could be really good for those students that have been learning a language for, say, a couple of years and have more, than just the basics, as it were. And I love the way in which the students you can then get them to guess the sentence or sentences based on the drawings that each other has done. I just think, it's just great. It's just absolutely great. I really, really love the tool. Genuinely, I think it's really, really wonderful. And I love the way that you sort of reached out and you said if people have difficulty with using up all their DrawRoom allowance, at getting contact and you can raise their allowance a little bit and what have you. So I'm sure that people are going to really enjoy watching the recording back, and we can I can post it on social media. You can as well, and everyone that registered will get a copy of the recording as well. But it's been a fabulous evening, so thank you, or afternoon for yourselves, but in the UK, fabulous evening. And it's just been, it's been wonderful. Maybe a few final thoughts, Chris, if you want. Was there anything that you haven't said that you wanted to say, or anything else to add?
Wow, you really summarized things up well, Joe. Thank you. No, it's great, and I love sharing Charlala with other language teachers and just getting your feedback and kind of the fun ways that you're twisting it to use it in your classroom. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Questions, suggestions. You want a little boost on that allowance? Not an issue. Please reach out, chris@charlala.com. The final thing I'll leave you with is we are really working in the next coming months to grow that library, to have activities across languages, across levels, both stories, conversations ready to go for you and your students. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I would be a really good writer of these stories, or I would be a really good creator of those conversations, reach out. I'd love to hear from you and love to see how we can work together to get your stories and conversations on Charlala.
Perfect way to finish. That's fantastic. Again, thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to stop recording right now, but it's been a lovely, lovely webinar. It's been so interesting, and I'm sure we're going to get lots of views on the YouTube clip afterwards. Absolutely brilliant stuff. I'll just hit stop recording now, and